Hello, my name is Daniel Yuck. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you, your time, and your support. In this video, I want to go over the bare bone basics on how tattoo stencil paper works. Should you have any questions at all, I encourage you to drop a comment below. I'll do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. If you find this video helpful, consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel, as I'm going to be bringing more videos like this for you. With that being said, let's get right on into this. Taking it from the top, let's talk about stencil paper and how it works. This right here is a sheet of tattoo stencil paper. Now, most brands I've ever come across follow the same structural protocol, which is we have the backing sheet, we have the carbon sheet, we have the separator, and then the top sheet. So let me kind of clear that up for you. So every single paper I've ever used has this top sheet. They are always different in quality, different in texture as well. But for the most part, they all follow the same structure, just to confirm. So top sheet right here is the sheet that the stencil is going to actually get transferred to. This is what's going to be placed onto the skin. This right here is always the separator sheet. This comes right on out. This just separates the carbon from the actual transfer sheet. So we have the transfer sheet, we have the separator sheet. The third sheet is typically always the carbon sheet. It's like a plastic piece of film, as you can see. It has like a very, very thin plastic piece of film, and the carbon basically transfers to this sheet when we remove the separating sheet. So this one is always going to be removed, just to confirm, just like that. And then from there, depending on the type of thermal or the type of stencil paper we have, will determine if we're going to run it through a thermal printer or if we're going to hand draw it. But the idea is to we thermal print or hand draw. We're going to transfer this carbon dye onto the paper. This is the purple that we see on every tattoo stencil. This right here, I know it looks darker right now, but I assure you this is purple. You can kind of see it from the backing here. When I lift it up and let the light shine on it, you can see how it has a purple hue. This is the carbon that guides our tattooing process. That's where it comes from. So for those who are curious, this is the sheet that transfers the stencil carbon to the actual stencil paper. And on the back, we have the backing sheet. Sometimes we use this, sometimes we don't. It depends on our setup, our thermal printer that we're using, or printer that we are using. However, that right there is the, I guess, anatomy of tattoo stencil paper. Just real quick, one more time. The top sheet is always going to be the sheet that we transfer to the skin that the carbon goes on to. The middle sheet is going to be the separating sheet. The film is going to be the actual carbon sheet, and then the bottom sheet is going to be the backing sheet. Once again, most stencils paper that I've ever used come with this format. I prefer to use a thermal printer so that way I can get very clean lines like this and multiple line weights. When I tried to draw these stencil in by hand, I got highly inconsistent line weights. I didn't know what lines needed to be what line weight, so I went to a thermal printer for those reasons. Also, it's far easier to make a stencil using an iPad and a thermal printer versus doing it all by hand. Neither of them are wrong. There's just a better approach for the artist that you are. So for me, using a thermal printer combined with an iPad is the way to go. You can see that I'm able to get clean designs with multiple line weights, different detail aspects as well. See, we have some tapers there, we have thinner lines right here, heavier line weights there. You get the idea. How that works is, so basically whenever we print the design, picture this sheet, a part of this sheet right here. So once I made my design, I sized it and everything, I put this into the thermal printer, and then it's basically going to run through the thermal printer. Now, without the separator sheet, we have this sheet touching this sheet right here. So as it runs through the thermal printer, it's going to scan the lines and then burn them in from the carbon into the paper, and then we get that. So it transfers from the carbon to the backing of the stencil sheet, which looks like this. I kind of wanted to show you that to give you a real world look here as to what's happening. So that's exactly what's happening with this. That's how this one was made. So you can kind of get the idea. Ran it through the printer. The design was right here in the image I printed, and then when I'm done, I cut it out, and this is exactly what I have. It pretty much works the same for every single design, besides like hyper-realistic designs. Thermals aren't good for hyper-realistic. However, this approach is pretty much for every single style design I would make. So that's how that works. Let's talk about transferring the stencil. So now that we have an idea as to what we can expect from the stencil paper, how it works, let's transfer this stencil onto here. How I would go about doing that, since I'm working on fake skin, we have a couple of options. I typically like to use a stencil applicant like this. This is Speed Stick. However, I would typically use Green Card. However, I don't have that available to me as of right now. But you can use Green Card, you can use Speed Stick. The idea is you want to use a transfer applicant so that way the stencil can transfer. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a generous amount of Speed Stick so that way I cover and saturate the entire area. The last thing that I need is to not put enough applicant and then have a blank stencil and not transfer over. So we have to have a balance. This part's super important, and this part actually makes this entire process a little bit complicated because we have to get the ratios right. I feel like this part is way more harder than making the actual designs, especially if we're working on fake skin. We can blur it on human skin too, but on fake skin it's way easier to blur the design and bleed the design. So you can see I have a generous and a very generous amount of applicant here on the fake skin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glove and then gradually kind of rub it around to remove some excess. And then I'm going to take a napkin and then brush lightly so that way I don't have too much. If I have too much excess, I'm going to get bleeding. That's just the way stencil carbon paper works. If we have too much applicant, we're definitely going to get bleeding. So I'm going to go ahead and do it like this. That's great. And then from here, I want to make sure that it's tacky and not too much or too little. And then I'm going to go ahead and just paste this, or I'm sorry, paste this. I'm going to place this down right here in the middle and hope for the best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure. I'm not pressing down super hard and I'm not smearing like this. I'm just simply applying pressure straight down and lifting up, and that is it. Just so that way I can make sure that the stencil is transferring the way that it should. I need every single part of this design to be transferred over. Even if some areas are lighter than others, that's fine, as long as we have the integral design, transferred. The main part of the design has to be transferred over in order for us to actually transfer it and tattoo it, or in order for us to actually tattoo it correctly. So from here, I can now remove this to see if we are good. So there is a little bit lighter areas right here. I can go back and press them down. I'm going to do this slowly just in case an area didn't stick. I can place it back down and then pat it down. However, this right here appears to be really good. This area didn't stick well, but that's nothing. I can work with that 110%. That right there is exactly how I would go about transferring a design. Now, here is where things get a little, I guess, tricky. We are almost home free and ready to tattoo this. This last part is very important. It doesn't matter if we're applying a stencil to human skin or fake skin. There's going to be a period where we have to wait for the stencil to dry. Just to reiterate, it does not matter if it's going to be on fake or human skin. There is going to be a period where we need to let the stencil dry. You can see I'm on fake skin right now. With fake skin, it takes forever to dry, so I can be here waiting anywhere from 4 to 24 hours. I used to prep all of my stencils in advance, which meant that I had to tattoo them the day after I placed the stencil down. So I would have to prep the fake skin, place the stencil down for the following day. However, those days are long gone. I no longer do that, and I have more of an immediate dry application process. When I'm using fake skin, and it's important to note that this is only for fake skin, do not ever do this on human skin. So for fake skin, instead of waiting 24 hours like I used to, I'm going to use a heat gun. So you can see I have a Wagner heat gun right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it on low, and you're going to see the design gradually get a little bit darker. You're going to see the design start drying right before our eyes, which means that I'll be able to tattoo this in a matter of minutes as opposed to having to wait 24 full hours for this thing to dry. So you can see the actual design kind of like baking into the fake skin and darkening up. I'll show you a little before and after. And there we go. This is real time. I didn't fast forward or anything. And you can see now I have a fully dry tattoo that is dark, defined, and ready to be tattooed. Now that will be it for this video. To conclude this video, some last things I have to say is this. When it comes to tattoo stencil paper, I wouldn't define it as hard to work with. I would say it's more so tricky. It's tricky because we have to always, every single time we apply a stencil to any surface, whether it's fake skin or human skin, we have to have perfect ratios of our applicant, we have to have perfect placement, and we also have to have the design ready to be placed down cleanly. So there are multiple obstacles that we have to cross whenever we're dealing with stencil paper in order for any artist, any one of us, to yield good quality results. We have to be tuned in with our workflow. We have to have that all dialed in. If we're better off freehanding, we're better off freehanding. If we're better off printing, we're better off printing. You get the idea. So there is a bunch of hurdles that we have to jump through and optimize before we start yielding clean quality, consistent results with our tattoo stencils. Now that'll be it for this one. That right there is the basics of tattoo stencil paper. Should you have any questions at all, I encourage you to drop a comment down below. I'll do my absolute best to assist in the best possible direction. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and giving this video a thumbs up, as I would greatly appreciate your support. With that being said, I appreciate you, your time. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.